Tonight, the most star-studded and shamelessly excessive party of the year. It's the 4th annual MTV New Year's Eve Rock and Roll Ball, live.
The year 1985 has always interested me due to a lot of impactful moments taking place in pop culture.
Steven Spielberg presents Back to the Future.
It was the year Back to the Future was released, becoming the biggest film of the year and possibly the most famous time travel movie.
Will you be the one to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System?
Nintendo launched the entertainment system and gave everyone a chance to become a plumber.
Mario, where are you?
And Microsoft released their first version of Windows.
Yeah.
On the music side of things,
considering its quality and size, the compact disc most certainly will become a part of our everyday lives in the future.
This was the year that the CD format was beginning to gain popularity with music lovers after Sony released their CD Walkman in late 1984. Most importantly, a lot of great music. Absolute classics from a lot of artists at this time. Also, of course, great music videos. And with this being such a banner year for both tech and music, we are going to be talking about one of the biggest milestones in not only music videos, but also for computer graphics. It's all thanks in part to one of the most rocking songs of 1985. Just as iconic as that opening guitar riff, Money for Nothing by Dire Straits is one of the defining pieces of pop culture media of the 1980s.
Money for nothing and your chicks for free.
And it may not look like it for some younger people, but this video was groundbreaking stuff at the time. What they offered was the first ever instance of computer animated characters in media.
Some kitchen delivery.
But this song did not just make history in animation, it also helped the band get their first #1 hit in the United States, and quite possibly helped make the album it's from, Brothers in Arms, become one of the best-selling albums ever. That's a lot of pedigree for one music video. But how exactly did it come into fruition?
Let me tell you, damn guys ain't dumb.
I'll be definitely telling you all about the leaps and bounds of this video getting made. From the tireless nights animating to a dinner conversation that could have resulted in the video never being made, among many other facets to this important and legendary music video.
Look at that, look at that.
So for this episode, I'm guaranteeing you that you will be getting money for nothing, chicks for free, and plenty of knowledge, as it is once again music video time. And we are talking about Dire Straits and their classic Money for Nothing. We're going to be looking at a couple of yo-yos showing us the way to do it. So let's move a mover.
Mover, mover.
So the story behind the music video has to begin with talking about the band behind the hit. Formed in 1977, Dire Straits was a London-based act that was formed by brothers Mark and David Knopfler, John Isley, and Pick Withers.
By
1978, they would release their self-titled debut album. It initially didn't gain much traction, nor did any of their songs get any airplay in the UK. It wouldn't be until January 1979 when their first hit, Sultans of Swing, would be released in the United States and become a major hit.
with the Sultans, with the Sultans of Swing.
From there, the band picked up steam. They started touring and opening for acts like Talking Heads, got a record deal from Warner Brothers, and eventually, their album would spend 132 weeks on the UK charts, peaking at number 5. Sultans of Swing, meanwhile, would be a huge hit, cracking the top 20 and top 10 in multiple sales charts, including peaking at number 4 on Billboard's Hot 100. This would start a trend of commercial success for the band, selling out their tours and hitting the charts for the next 3 albums, including getting their first #1 album in the UK with Love Over Gold. By 1985, Dire Straits was about to release their 5th album, Brothers in Arms, on May 17, 1985. By the time this album was released, the member lineup had changed dramatically. Pick Withers and David Knopfler had been out of the band for some time, with Terry Williams becoming the new drummer in 1982, Jack Sonny in 1984 as rhythm guitarist, replacing Hal Lins, who was fired during the Brothers in Arms sessions.
That you and John have managed to be the two that have stuck together when the band has sort of gone through various stages.
I don't know, we're just in love.
They also had two keyboardists in the band, Alan Clark and Guy Fletcher. Brothers in Arms, meanwhile, was technologically advanced when it came out. It was one of the first albums released on the then relatively new CD format, as well as recorded entirely on digital compared to the analog magnetic tape strategy at the time, resulting in a high quality sound compared to other releases. Coupled with tracks like Walk of Life, So Far Away From Me, and Today's Subject Matter, this resulted in the album becoming the first album to sell more on CD than on vinyl record, as well as being the first album to sell 1 million CDs. In general, the album is one of the best-selling albums ever, reportedly selling over 30 million albums worldwide, including over 9 million in the United States. Currently, it is the 8th best-selling UK album of all time. But with all these massive leaps in sound quality, I don't think the album would have sold as well as it did without Money for Nothing. While Dire Straits was commercially successful in their home country and many others, it couldn't be said in the United States. Sure, they had a presence in the US ever since their first album, the first 4 especially peaking in the top 20 on Billboard's 200 charts. Singles-wise, not so much. Outside of Sultans of Swing, which peaked at number 4 in the Hot 179, none of their other singles cracked the top 40. Industrial Disease off their Love Over Gold album, for example, peaked at number 9 on their mainstream rock airplay charts, but on the Hot 100, it peaked at 75.
This is my investigation. It's not a public inquiry.
Private Investigations, their biggest hit in the UK, peaking at number 2, didn't even get released in the US as a single. The closest they got to a second hit was in 1979 with their single Lady Writer, peaking at number 45. So to remedy the band's lackluster sales, Dire Straits' manager Ed Bicknell got in touch with Limelight Productions co-founder Siobhan Barron. Bicknell asked her what they needed to go to get the band on MTV. From what I gather, MTV barely played Dire Straits on the channel. The band's video to Twisting by the Pool, for example, played on late rotation in March 1983, meaning it got played once or twice a day. Solid Rock also got late rotation, starting in the week of May 16th, 1984 to the week of July 3rd. One music video being played for a few weeks in a year does not constitute a successful video on MTV. There had to be a way to get them played more on the channel, and Siobhan had an answer. She told Bicknell, get Mark Knopfler to write an MTV-able song and then let us make the video. I'm assuming Knopfler took that suggestion to heart because he came up with a song entirely about MTV. Pretty obvious what the song's subject is about when the first lyric opens up with him dropping the channel's name.
You play the guitar on the MTV.
I'll talk more about the lyrics later, but in terms of instrumentals, to get a sound that would attract the MTV audience, Knopfler sought inspiration from one of the biggest acts playing on the channel. Yep, the bearded rock legend ZZ Top.
Where's ZZ Top? You're watching us on MTV, music television.
Famously, the rock trio had a revitalization in their career thanks in part to embracing MTV and releasing a trilogy of music videos in 1983. With Legs especially peaking at number 8 on the Hot 100. And with that, the act's sound became the biggest influence on Knopfler, specifically how Money for Nothing's guitar riff came about.
Putting it to music, again, that old finger and something, it's sort of a double.
But as iconic as a riff it is, it came about on accident. Co-producer on the album Neil Dorsman explained in an interview with Sound on Sound. I remember Mark's Les Paul Jr. going through a Landy amp, and that was the sound for Money for Nothing. We were actually going for a sort of ZZ Top sound, but what we ended up getting was kind of an accident. Mark would be in the control room, and we'd run a lead out to the main area, and I remember getting a channel set up to monitor, heading out to the room to move the mics around. And Mark's guitar tech, Ron Eve, getting on the talkback and telling me not to touch anything because it sounded amazing as it was. One mic was pointing down on the floor, another was not quite on the speaker, and another was somewhere else. It wasn't how I would want to set things up. It was probably just left from the night before, where I'd be preparing things for the next day and had not really finished the setup. Nevertheless, whether it was the phase of the mics or the out of phaseness, what we heard was exactly what ended up on the record. There was no additional processing on that tune during the mix. Later on, we tried to recreate the guitar sound at the power station with the same amp, same setup, and same models of microphone, but we could never get it. I'd drawn extensive pictures, and we had a little map on how everything everything was set up, but there must have been something weird going on with the guitar sound that way in Montserrat, because in New York, it sounded like a cleaner karaoke version of the same thing. I messed around with it for a good couple of hours, but Mark was just getting bored and wanted to move on. The whole thing was very confusing. Later on, a lot of people asked me how I got the sound on the record, but it was just one of those happy accidents that have not happened to me very often. I don't know if something was broken, but we could not recreate that sound again. So have you ever tried recreating the guitar riff in Money for Nothing, and it doesn't sound quite right? Don't worry about that, since Dire Straits themselves were unable to recreate the unique riffing. Originally, the song was supposed to begin with the guitar riff, but it was replaced with the I Want My MTV intro. The origin of how that came about has many different stories to it. Neil Dorfman says Guy Fletcher came up with it. Another story has Mark Knopfler come up with it. Other keyboardist Alan Clark has said that he was the one that came up with it. Whoever it was concocted a dynamite way to open this track. And with this intro, another important addition to the song involved getting a major singer to take part in the recording sessions.
I like to take risks, and that's what I'm about, so let me do it.
Sting, the lead singer and bassist to The Police, was the accompanying vocalist for this song. During his time, The Police were on hiatus after the Synchronicity tour ended in 1984, and Sting was doing his own thing, releasing his first solo album that year. While recording the song, Knopfler wished that Sting was there to sing it, and apparently Sting was in the area on holiday. Mark Knopfler rung up Sting and asked him to swing by the studio and sing a bit for Money for Nothing.
Turn it on, leave it on, America, see the music you want to see!
This was the catchphrase for an ad campaign during the early days of MTV to get more people to call their television providers to get MTV as one of their channels. They recruited various acts for these TV spots, including The Police.
Call your cable company and say, I want my MTV!
When given the melody, Sting recognized it from a familiar place.
Don't stand so close to me.
Knopfler's story was that he saw The Police do the ad and thought that if he stuck it to Don't Stand So Close to Me's notes, it would work out. Sting himself thought nothing of it and did his part of the song. This also resulted in Sting getting a writing credit for Money for Nothing. Major record label Virgin, however, did not take kindly to the similarities. As Sting said, Virgin, who have I been at war with for years and who I have no respect for, decided this was a song they owned, Don't Stand So Close to Me. They said they wanted a percentage of the song, much to my embarrassment. So they took it.
Industry rule number 4080. Record company people are shady.
Once the song was finished and Brothers in Arms was completed, it was time to get a director for the music video. While I'm not entirely sure if Siobhan Barron and her production company was involved with making the video, what I do know is that the other co-founder was the director, Siobhan's brother. Let's talk about Steve Barron, one of the most prolific music video directors of the 1980s. Starting his music video career back in 1979 with Secret Affairs' Time for Action, Barron would direct music videos for some of the biggest acts of the following decade: The Human League, Rod Stewart, Eddie Grant, Madonna, Bryan Adams. Even Michael Jackson's Billie Jean was directed by him. In 1985 alone, he directed 13 music videos. Before making Money for Nothing, Barron had got done making another groundbreaking music video, made for a little-known act from Oslo. Barron had just finished directing the second version of a-ha's Take On Me, which entered rotation on MTV in May 1985. He was approached by Warner Brothers executive Jeff Ayeroff, who came up with Take On Me's second video concept, and put Barron in charge to shoot the music video to Money for Nothing. Warner Brothers was loving Dire Straits' new song, believing it to be a real hit, and so Barron was flown out to Budapest to talk to Knopfler about shooting a music video for it. Dire Straits were in the middle of their Brothers in Arms tour, which went from April 1985 and April 1986, and this leg of their tour put them in Budapest, Hungary. The conversation between Barron and Knopfler over the music video happened over dinner. Barron told Knopfler that he did not want to make a music video with just them performing, like any other music video. He wanted to make a concept music video. Specifically, he wanted to make a music video that heavily used computer animation. Now that's a risky idea to make, as this was never done before. but Baron was determined to get the singer to be in for the concept. I said, look Mark, I really feel like MTV now is at a stage where you have to do something extraordinary. It has to be a bit different. You can't just do the same thing. It's gotta be something very different. And this song as well, it's about MTV. I understand that's kind of more of a derogatory thing in a way, but it is about MTV. So we have to kind of play on that and do something that's just not you guys performing. Now there are two important factors about Mark Knopfler and his song to keep in mind. The first being, this song is very scathing about MTV. Yes, they made a song intended to get them on the channel, but the song itself is not a positive piece about MTV. It is in fact the opposite. It is by and large critiquing MTV by way of insulting the acts it plays.
Oh, that ain't working. That's the way you do it.
What the musicians are doing is not a real job, compared to people moving microwaves and fridges so they can be sold. What the movers are doing is honest work. What the musicians do, meanwhile, is just flaunting about and getting money for doing nothing. And the phrase, I want my MTV, is being used in a mocking manner too, amplified by the fact that one of the people that helped take part in the campaign to expand MTV's growth in the US is the one singing it. Admittedly, it is very easy to miss the message of what this song is about, but if they could play it up on it being on MTV, the channel would definitely play their video. In fact, Les Garland from MTV was in a meeting with Mo Ostin and Lenny Waronker, who ran Warner Brothers, and told them, I think that song that mentions MTV is a smash. They go, you weren't offended? I go, offended? Flattered might be a better word.
Look at that, look at that.
As for Mark, his answers to the pitch? Nothing. Baron continues his story, and he didn't say a word. And I'm starting my way through this pitch and I say, you know, I just feel that the idea of this is that there's irony in it. And so I was pushing this irony. I told him, I can't show you anything because it's never been done before. But there's graphics that can be done inside of the computer, and this went on and on. I was getting deeper and deeper into this tangle of technology, and I could feel like he was thinking, get the stoner out of here, tell him to just go away. I could just feel that coming from him. The second thing about Knopfler to keep in mind is that he hated music videos. Baron remembers telling Jeff Ayeroff before his trip to Budapest, Dire Straits are very purist. Real musicians, especially Mark Knopfler, who's not really very fond of music videos and all that they're doing. Steve Barron also said in an interview with Yahoo, Mark was very stuck in his ways and felt that they had to be on stage. With the view is just hearing the lyrics come from the band, not given some visuals to make them think about something else. This is pretty ironic as Money for Nothing was Dire Straits' 10th music video. Back to the dinner conversation, Barron believed that Knopfler was about to tell him no to the idea, but luckily, Barron had an unexpected champion by his side. With the two men at this dinner was Knopfler's girlfriend at the time, and compared to the singer's seemingly negative silence, his girlfriend loved the idea. You know what? You're absolutely right. MTV is a real wake-up call. I think that's when she went into a little bit of a monologue about the music videos she did and didn't like. The meal sort of petered out and Mark didn't say anything, but he didn't say no. I feel like what helped here is that Knopfler's girlfriend was American, and considering that they really needed to attract a US crowd, Knopfler held his tongue on how he felt. And because of that, he took the silence as permission to go ahead with the music video concept. The easy part of shooting the music video was the live action portions. Dire Straits performing the song in the video was taken from when the band was in Budapest during their Brothers in Arms tour, which would put the shooting in between May 17th and May 20th on 1985. Does make me wonder how much Knopfler hated the shoot. I bring this up since in the book I Want My MTV, Stephen R. Johnson, director of their Walk of Life video, remarked that the singer did not want to be photographed from the side, as he did not like the fact that he had a prominent proboscis. But obviously you need the band to appear and perform in their video to get on MTV, so that was a necessary shoot. Along with filming Dire Straits, Baron also shot 2 fake music videos. The first one being the song Baby Baby by First Floor and Sally by the Ian Pearson Band. Now, the Ian Pearson Band does not exist, as the band's name is in reference to one of the 2 animators for Money for Nothing, Ian Pearson. But interestingly, First Floor is a real band. They're a Hungarian pop band, so actually First Floor is the English translation to their actual name. Now Not entirely sure what their careers were like, but I'm assuming that since they were a band from Budapest, they were selected to be in the fake music video. I've seen some claims online that this was actually the music video to the song Stop or I'll Shoot, which I think is wrong because this is the music video to Stop or I'll Shoot. Pretty catchy tune, by the way. Baron himself said this was a fake music video in his interview with Yahoo in 2016, and I don't believe they made a song called Baby Baby, so whatever this song is supposed to be, I have no clue. As for who the woman is in the second music video, IMDb says her name is Renata Sadler, and if we are to believe IMDb, that means that her most well-known work, besides the music video, was appearing in Howling 5: The Rebirth.
Don't understand English.
I am very pleased to meet you.
Not entirely sure if the fake videos were full length, but if they were, that would mean Baron made 4 music videos all together for money for nothing. More than likely we'll never see any other footage see the light of day, but one can dream. As for the main pull of the music video, let's discuss the animation.
That's the way you do it.
By the time Money for Nothing came out, computer graphics were used in a few music videos, but not as abundantly as Dire Straits'. The first video implementing them was in 1979 with Elvis Costello in The Attractions, Accidents Will Happen. For a majority of the video, it's animated with ink and paint, but at the end, there is a brief moment with a green-on-black vector image of Costello singing. Other examples of this include the Cards As You Might Think, along with Duran Duran's The Reflex.
Even in the year 3000, the question will be, what's for dinner?
Computer graphics are used in things like commercials or bumpers like MTV actually did. But those 2 last videos are notable due to the use of the Quintel paint box.
Will somebody kill that music? It's better.
Created by the UK company Quintel, the Paintbox was a workstation that added 2D graphics to products. You can see this in things like the Reflexes video, which added a water effect to make it appear like a waterfall splashed onto the audience. To provide the animation for the music video, animators Ian Pearson and Gavin Blair of Rush's post-productions worked on the CG. And the way they used the Paintbox was by basically rotoscoping Dire Straits with animation during their performance. Rotoscoping is the technique of tracing over live footage to add visual effects. And I guess rotoscoping seems to have been a running theme for Baron's videos at the time, as seen by Take On Me. The budget for Money for Nothing was $100,000, which does not seem like a lot, but I do want to note that by 1984, a paint box was going for $150,000 a pop. Usually music videos would be shot with 35mm cameras, which have the frame rate of 24 frames per second. So let's pretend that they shot the whole music video with Dire Straits' only, and they would have to color in all 4 minutes and 38 seconds worth of frames. That would make it 278 seconds. Times that by 24 and you would have 6,672 frames to color in. Thankfully, that's not the case, as a rough estimate, around 55 seconds of the video has footage of Dire Straits that were drawn on. I'm thinking the reasoning would have to be that it's because of a very long process, as even if they only did 55 seconds of the video using Paintbox, that would still be over 1,000 frames to paint, roughly 1,320 frames to color in. On the plus side, they were working on the single version of the song and not the album version, being over 8 minutes. No way that version would have ever made it on time with that length. From what I understand, Gavin Blair was the one leading the work on the Paintbox, along with other animators. In 2022, Blair explained in a series of tweets about how the process worked. For one thing, Blair only did 1 shot, while the rest of the work was done by Viv Scott. Can't find any information on Scott, and Blair lost contact with her in 1996. As for the Paintbox, as you know, it worked in single frames. It couldn't record or play sequences, pre-Harry or age 60. So for Money for Nothing, we needed to automate the in and out for VTR, because of the live action treatment we wanted to do. Our head of engineering knew a couple of very smart guys, sorry the names are gone. One was called Steve, maybe, who had just set up their own company called Pandora's Other Box. They built a little gadget that interfaced with the Sony 2000 and the Paintbox that allowed Viv to grab or record frames from or to 1 inch. Still 1 at a time, but hey, groundbreaking stuff. She had a dedicated machine in the VT room with signs on it telling people what she would do to them if they touched her 2000. The selected Dire Straits live action was put on tape, and she had the in and out time codes. Using the magic box, she would single frame them in, name and save them, do the effects work on Paintbox, then record them out frame by frame on a different part of the 1-inch. Because I was there the entire time babysitting FGS renders, she sometimes sweet-talked me into recording in sequences overnight for her to paint the next day. She even let me do a couple of brief shots for her. Pandora's other box also built electronic cage generators for us and the edit suites to help us line stuff up and keep them within TV safe. Stuff like that. Baron himself mentions the painting process was done day and night until stopping a month before the video's due date. As for the piece de resistance, the 3D animation portions of the music video, they acquired a Bosch FGS 4000 for the task. And I would assume the Bosch was also pretty expensive to purchase, though not entirely sure what the price value was. So this video had a lot of pricey equipment be used for a 4-minute music video. The process of making the 3D animation was done by Ian Pearson. Baron said it took nearly a month to create the CGI. Ian just lived in the production room. I gave him all the storyboards and he was there literally 24 hours a day, working 3 days straight, then sleeping for 8 hours. We couldn't do it any other way because no one else could do it. 3D animation was still a new venture at the time. Things like a computer animated hand was from 1972 and not much really changed ever since. Stuff like Tron had CGI effects added into their films, but it wasn't the same as what they were doing for money for nothing. What Gavin and Ian were doing was pretty unprecedented. While a lot of CG works were mostly of objects, in this case, this was the first instance of 3D animated human characters. And these first characters ended up being blue-collar workers.
We got some movies, color TV.
Now on the surface, the 3D portions look pretty primitive. You don't see them emote, the characters' movements are stiff.
Oh, that ain't working.
But considering the fact that they did this all in the span of nearly a month, worked on it for sleepless nights on a portion of a $100,000 budget, as well as still having to make shortcuts to get it done on time before the single's release, it's a miracle it even got done. You gotta commend Pearson and Blair and anyone else involved in the animation for doing this on such a tight schedule, especially since this was a groundbreaking moment for the field of animation. Though it did seem that 1985 was the year a lot of advancements were being showcased for CGI. This did include Dire Straits' music video, but there was a chance that they could not have been the first computer-animated human characters.
27 years, 6 nights a week.
In July of that year, the Canadian-made short film Tony de Petrie debuted in San Francisco. Clocking in at 8 minutes, it featured the first computer-animated human character to express emotion. While critically acclaimed and was a huge milestone of itself, it did have a 3-year production history. Tony could have been the first ever computer-animated character ever, but the quick turnaround for Dire Straits' video prevented that from happening. So to recap, starting in the middle of May 1985, the music video was being worked on. Not sure when production wrapped, but it had to be before the end of June. But in between the production time, Dire Straits was slowly setting up their presence on the channel. One of their singles off of Brothers in Arms, Walk of Life, began playing on the channel starting the week of June 12, 1985, and played for a few weeks before being taken off. But then everything came together. Money for Nothing was released as a single on June 28, 1985 in the United States. And on the week of July 3rd, 1985, the music video debuted on the channel. And boy did it play. It got power rotation, playing on the channel for who knows how many times a day. It was an immediate smash. Absolutely, the animation is the biggest pull of the video, but I would say it does have a semblance of things happening in it. The video follows two movers at a store moving things around while commentating what they see on MTV.
That's the way you do it. You play the guitar on the MTV.
And while they really don't do much besides moving microwave ovens, color TVs, refrigerators, the skinnier mover does end up frozen by an open fridge, which results in the portlier mover having to microwave his head and put it on heavy rotation. Cue. I will say that the video does remind me of a future product MTV would make years later. The Fat Mover riffing these videos does make it feel like this is the groundwork of Beavis and Butthead. Though the two idiot teens actually liking music in their case. Well, not every piece of music though.
These guys are hippies.
Yeah. I hate hippies.
This is like circus music.
Yeah. This sucks.
The Fat Mover, meanwhile, dismisses making music as a real job, being sarcastic, and claiming that he could be a musician, believing it to be easy to do.
I should've learned to play them drums.
Not to mention, he also insults musicians.
To the little faggot with the earring and the makeup. Yeah, buddy, that's his own hair.
Okay, time to address the elephant in the room about Money for Nothing. As iconic as the song is by itself, there was one lyric in the song that has always been controversial. Knopfler using a homophobic slur. This would definitely have ruined Dire Straits' chances of having a hit song now, but that didn't seem to be the case in 1985. But that's not to say the song didn't get immediate pushback, as many LGBT groups at the time condemned the use of the slur being played on the radio and on MTV. This whole controversy was exemplified even further by the fact that there was poor timing with the release of Money for Nothing, as the song was released during Pride Week in the UK. This resulted in calls for boycott for Dire Straits by gay news features editor Mike Murphy, condemning the band and saying he wouldn't buy any more of their records. It appears that some employees of MTV were pissed off by the decision of playing this song uncensored, as people like George Bratt, who worked at MTV for 5 years as research analyst, supervisor of music scheduling, and associate producer, stated in I Want My MTV as being pissed off that happened.
Look at that.
Knopfler shouldn't have used the slur to begin with and should have said something else. But there's nuance to the usage. Now, obviously, what he said is unsavory to say the least. But while I won't defend him using it as a lyric, I understand where it's coming from. Knopfler made the song to criticize a certain aspect of MTV. The intent, though, wasn't made through his narration. For Money for Nothing, he plays a character in the song, the mover you see in the video.
Look at that mama, she got it sticking in the cameraman.
And he didn't make it up on the spot. He actually had real-world inspiration. How the song's lyrics came about was when Knopfler was in an appliance store's hardware department. While there, he heard movers talking about what they were seeing on MTV, which was being played on the televisions. And what they were saying caught the attention of the rocker. Knopfler borrowed a pencil and paper in the store and jotted down what he was hearing from the guys that eventually ended up being the lyrics to the song. Though not everything was verbatim, as Knopfler later stated that there were a lot more swears in the movers' lexicon. In fact, the musician wanted to add more swears into the song, specifically MFer. He even wanted to make a more profane-laden version of the song, but never got around to it.
Look at them, that's the way you do it. Maybe get a on your little finger.
Which was probably for the best, as what he got away with already put him in hot water. Though I will say, in one in many layers of irony in this situation, Knopfler was asked in a Rolling Stone interview if he ever solicited advice for lyrics. He said he didn't, but Jack Sonny offered a lyric change for Money for Nothing. He suggested replacing makeup instead of tutu.
With the earring and the makeup. Yeah, buddy, that's his own hair.
We don't know what music video the disgruntled viewer was watching to make the remarks he had that inspired Knopfler, but Nikki Sixx chimed in 2007 that it was a Motley Crue video. Now, Knopfler never said they were watching Motley Crue at the time, and considering Sixx wasn't there when it happened, I would assume that what he's saying isn't accurate, especially since it's widely believed this is in reference to George Michael. I do have a theory where Sixx would have gotten this from, though. In a Boston Globe interview, bassist John Isley used Motley Crue as an example of how a mover would react to MTV. You can just imagine that some guy who has been throwing microwave ovens around a store for 10 years might say when he sees Motley Crue come on TV. Isley laughs, referring to the flamboyantly dressed heavy metal band from Los Angeles. In fact, the language was a lot worse than what's in the song. I think Isley was just using Motley Crue as an example, but I'm not completely sure. Maybe it was a video from the Crue being short, but it's not like Knopfler was himself calling them that. In that same interview, Knopfler suggested to people they should take it for what it is. Basically, it's a song written about an ignoramus's point of view. Going back to the Rolling Stone interview, Knopfler had a lot to say about the controversy. The layers of irony in Money for Nothing have certainly confused people. I got an objection from the editor of a gay newspaper in London. He actually said it was below the belt. Apart from the fact that there are stupid gay people as well as stupid other people, it suggests that maybe you can't let it have so many meanings. You have to be direct. Probably not the best choice of words, but at the same time, there was another version of the song that took out the lyrics. There's even a version of the music video that cut that out too.
We got some movies, color TV. We got some movies, color TV.
but it seemed that some stations weren't aware of the other version. From a quote to Billboard by Cynthia Friedland of ATI about the troubles of showing the video uncensored, record companies have a tremendous responsibility in letting broadcasters know there are two versions. Which, to be fair, that is a good point. Knopfler also used another song as comparison for people missing the message. Randy Newman's Short People got a lot of backlash when it came out, being perceived as being offensive to short people.
They wear platform shoes on the nasty little feet.
So much so that in 1978, Isaiah Dixon Jr., a delegate for the state of Maryland, attempted to introduce legislation making it illegal to play the song on the state's airwaves. He also wanted the radio stations and the jockeys who played it be criminally charged and receive a fine of up to $500. And yes, on first listen, this song does sound offensive.
No short people around here.
But it also gets contradictory in the middle.
Short people are just the same as you and I.
What people are missing was that Randy Newman's song was made as a way to satirize bigotry. Years later, Newman would say, "The guy in that song is crazy. He was not to be believed." But it does seem like the satire in this message was also lost. For God's sakes, it peaked at number 2 on the charts.
Can I give all these people the finger?
So I would say Mark Knopfler using Short People as a comparison is appropriate. Just like the character in Newman's song, we shouldn't be listening to the mover in Money for Nothing. He doesn't think music is a real job, and he's saying a lot of offensive shit that didn't even fly in 1985. Frankly, this is like being mad at Archie Bunker on All in the Family. Yes, he's a bigot, but that's the point.
England is a fag country.
You aren't supposed to like the guy, but I guess the satire was once again lost, as Bunker is just known as one of the most beloved sitcom characters of American television. What can you do? And in terms of how the song was played live, Knopfler definitely knows how bad the word is, as future concert performances, he replaced the slur with other words that related to it.
Little Queenie got the earrings and the makeup. I tell you, brother, that's his own hair.
He did that as early as Live Aid that year.
You gotta have a contact and it's on chat and play. Yeah, he's a millionaire.
And when I say early, the song was released as a single on June 28th, and Live Aid was on July 13th. So he knew things had to be different when performing live. The lyrics are still a point of contention as late as 2011, as news broke that the song was banned from Canadian radio. This decision was made by the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council after receiving complaint about the song on Canadian airwaves uncensored. On his website, keyboardist Guy Fletcher criticized the ruling. "I reckon Canada could ban about 75% of all records ever made. What a waste of paper." A part of me understands the decision. You can and should be allowed to write a song or poem or use language that is or has been in use by real people in everyday life. Money for Nothing does not celebrate a slur. In it, Mark Knopfler uses real everyday US street language to describe how a numbskull worker in a hardware department feels about a video being shown. The fact that the CBSC can make a ruling such as this, completely missing the context in which it's used, says rather a lot about the society in which we live. The council later reiterated in August 2011 that while they thought the lyric was inappropriate, it was up to the station whether or not they could play it censored or not. Going back to 1985, this controversial lyric did not stifle Dire Straits' chances to get a hit. Again, they had a version without it so that could be played on the radio. And this radio edit of Money for Nothing achieved the task of getting the band success in the United States. Entering the Billboard charts at 87 for the week of July 13th, 1985, it slowly made its way into the top 40, eventually reaching the peak 11 weeks later for the week of September 21st. And it stayed at number 1 for 3 weeks before being knocked off to number 2 by Ready for the World's Oh Sheila.
Oh Sheila, let me love you till the money comes.
By the end of the year, it would be number 8 on the Hot 100's end of the year chart. John Isley, meanwhile, remarked that the song didn't do as well in most European countries, noting it was doing better in places where music videos are more popular. Only in countries with a big music video scene has the song gone to number 1. Most European countries can't relate to it as well. They think, what is this? They like the beat, but they're not into it the same way as people who have seen the video. And speaking of the video, it was an overnight success, staying on the channel for months on end. Called a prediction they made in the music video, as it stayed on heavy rotation throughout that time.
We are ready now to kind of recap. Of course, we are right up next to number 1.
By the end of 1985, MTV counted down the new year by doing a list of the 100 music videos.
The number 1 video on the countdown. We have counted down the top 100 videos of 1985.
And topping that list was Dire Straits' number 1 hit. The Though a funny detail to mention was that, while Money for Nothing got the gold medal, voted number 2 on the list was We Built This City by Starship. We built this city on rock and roll. Can't help but see the hilarity that there was a chance that one of the most celebrated music videos would have been beaten out by an incredibly cheesy video by one of the most hated songs of the decade. We built this city on rock and roll. Along with the commercial hit and it being an absolute darling to fans of music, Money for Nothing was nominated for Best Music Video from different award shows. It was nominated at the 1986 Brit Awards, though losing to Everything You Go Away by Paul Young. Either between those two and Dancing in the Street by Jagger and Bowie, guess it was anyone's award that year. Strangely, while Brothers in Arms was nominated for Album of the Year and Money for Nothing the Song was nominated for both Record and Song of the Year at the 28th Annual Grammy Awards, for whatever reason it wasn't nominated for Best Music Video, though at the time that category was known as the Grammy Award for Best Video short form. Honestly, seeing what was nominated that year makes me think they were pretty loose on the term. No Jacket Required EP by Phil Collins had 5 music videos in it, so they made a 5 video collection have a slot? I don't understand how they did this. Money for Nothing probably would have still lost that year, consider the fact that the winner was, of course,
from New York, Los Angeles, London, Miami, and yes, New Haven, Connecticut, the 1986 MTV Video Music Awards.
But what really matters is MTV's own award show. And for the 3rd annual MTV Video Music Awards, Money for Nothing was tied for the most nominated music video that night, garnering 11 award nominations, tied with Take On Me. a-ha's video ended up winning 6 awards, including Best Direction and Best Special Effects. But Dire Straits managed to get 2 awards that night.
The air is tense with the anticipation, and the winner of the Best Group Video Award is
Dire Straits.
Dire Straits.
Looks like Dire Straits is the winner, and that can only mean one thing. Mark Knopfler.
Best Group Video and Video of the Year.
The winner is Dire Straits. Money for Nothing.
Wait, I just happen to know where the winner is. Follow me.
Oh no, I'm following you, Mark. Here we go.
Mark Knopfler.
Mark, here you go, another one to add to your list. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mark. Where does this one go?
Bookends, man. Cool bookends.
Congratulations, Mark.
In general, the Best Video nominees is one of the strongest selections I've seen in that category. Along with a-ha and Dire Straits, we had Godley and Cream's Cry, Talking Heads' Road to Nowhere, and Robert Palmer's Addicted to Love. Even though it looks as though the irony was lost, a video critical of MTV was their best video of the year. Personally, and without question, Take On Me should have won, because in the grand scheme of things, they had the better video out of anyone. I like Money for Nothing's music video, but I wouldn't call it one of my favorites. Nothing else really happens in it outside of the context of it being commentary of MTV at the time. Lose that context, and it's a pretty plain video. Unique but dated aesthetics can help make it memorable, but that is what it has going for it in the long run. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. Steve Barron has gone on record saying he prefers Take On Me over Money for Nothing. As he put it, Money for Nothing is more of a comedy in a way, and therefore it worked as a kind of moment in time. Something quite cute. At the time, very little computer animation had been done. Now you've got these incredible animations from Pixar, and they've taken it way beyond that. So Money for Nothing has a vintage, dated quality to it. But somehow Take On Me could come from almost any time. It could be a period piece, or it could be made now. But Money for Nothing isn't without its influence. The music video affected the use of computer animations for music videos, as a handful of artists made videos that used the technique.
Was unfaithful, cheated me cruelly.
This included Mick Jagger's Hard Woman and Kraftwerk's Music Non-Stop.
Music non-stop.
But nowadays, computer animation is so commonplace in media, it's now unique when something doesn't have CGI in it. As for Mark Knopfler on music videos, Steve Barron told Yahoo that the music video appeared to have changed his stance. When asked if the video softened the singer's anti-music video position, he responded, "I believe so. I worked with him later, another 5 or 6 times on a bunch of videos, where he really trusted me on what I wanted to do, so I think it all worked out." But possibly the biggest moment for the music video was on August 1st, 1987. Not only was this the 6th anniversary of MTV's first broadcast, but it was also when MTV Europe first hit airwaves in the continent.
Warn the UN,
MTV's coming to Europe.
The channel officially started with an Elton John concert, but the first music video they played was none other than the Dire Straits hit itself.
Europe will never look at music the same again.
And MTV absolutely adored the song.
It was really fun for us as a company when Dire Straits wrote a song and had incorporated that little phrase in it. People called up and said, "Oh, they're making fun of you, aren't you insulted?" And we were, "Are you kidding? What a compliment."
Which in general makes perfect sense. It's essentially free advertising when you hear it on the radio.
You play the guitar on the MTV.
In spite of it being a criticism towards the network and everything it stood for. And even now, Money for Nothing is still heavily associated with the channel, years after it stopped showing music videos. They even used Sting's opening line for their new logo.
A love-struck Romeo, sing the streets a serenade.
It was clear the legacy of the video was massive for the band by the time their first greatest hits album was released in 1988.
Ain't working, that's the way you do it.
As it itself was called Money for Nothing, even the album cover is taken from the music video. And as well as it being the act's signature song and biggest hit, it's also considered one of the greatest rock songs ever, ending up in various best of lists. And of course, the music video still has its admirers, and that would fall squarely on their two CGI characters. Who can say no to these two and their iconic designs, being worn in cosplays and referenced in future works like Homestar Runner.
Move on!
Probably one of the biggest tributes to the video came from Weird Al. In his 1989 movie, UHF, Mitzi Yankovic's character George Newman has a dream sequence while his television station plays the Beverly Hillbillies. And his dream sequence ends up being a musical number. The lyrics to the song is pretty much the theme song to the Beverly Hillbillies, with the tune sounding like Money for Nothing.
They tell you, one day he was shooting, old Jed was shooting at some food.
Which makes it more interesting that the guitarist sounding like Mark Knopfler is actually Mark Knopfler playing the song.
What a twist!
As part of an agreement to make a parody song for Dire Straits' hit, Knopfler would be the one playing the guitar. And that goes well beyond parody, if you ask me. However, Money for Nothing and Brothers in Arms' success does seem to be a mixed blessing. On one hand, Dire Straits got hits in the United States, and their album ended up becoming one of the best-selling albums in history. But the success of the album was a huge strain on Knopfler and the band, which led to Dire Straits breaking up.
You didn't mind the success, but you didn't like the fame? Is that fair to say?
Well, I can't think of anything good about fame. Can you?
So in September 1988, the musician announced the band had dissolved. Knopfler explained to Rolling Stone about the decision. A lot of press reports were saying we were the biggest band in the world. That's not an ascent on the music, that's an ascent on popularity. I needed a rest.
Here she comes!
They did form back together in 1990 and released one more album with 1991's On Every Street. Which received mixed reviews from critics, but still was a commercial success. Not to the level of Brothers in Arms, but still garnered at least platinum status in multiple countries. But after that, they broke up for good in 1995 after releasing their last contractual album, Live at the BBC. It was really for the best as touring took a toll on the band members and on Knopfler's marriage. Not to mention how impeccable the timing was for the release of On Every Street. The album was released on September 9th, 1991. The next day, Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit would be released as a single. 1991 was a year to be alive for music. As for the animators Ian Pearson and Gavin Blair, they would go on to co-found the animation studio, Mainframe Entertainment, in 1993, along with several others.
I come from the net, through systems, peoples, and cities, to this place.
Their first project would be the first fully computer animated TV show, Reboot.
Reboot!
This show would run from 1994 to 2001 for 4 seasons and still has a following to this day. They would also make other CGI shows such as Transformers Beast Wars, Max Steel, the Ratchet & Clank movie, and going through many different name changes and acquisitions, now being known as Mainframe Studios. In one particular episode of Reboot, the 11th episode Talent Night, it centers around a talent show, which is being held for Enzo's birthday. While talent tryouts are being held, 2 familiar faces show up to perform.
And now, the Dire, Sal, and Harv!
Wait, the Dires? And they have names?
Is it just me, Em, or are these acts getting worse?
Obvious sounding to the original side, it's kind of funny that they don't even get started performing before being booed off stage. Well, they didn't get booed off, more so get sandbagged. As the story goes, Pearson and Blair did not want to be known as the money for nothing guys in the industry, so this was their way of responding to that title. The two men did help with the story for this episode, but overall it's a bit mean-spirited in my opinion, but is rather interesting seeing the two movers at the time in a higher quality.
Now, that ain't working. That's the way you do it.
So Money for Nothing
And your chicks for free.
is not at all an understatement calling it one of the most important music videos ever made. I wouldn't say it's one of the greatest, but it did result in a plethora of milestones. It exploded Dire Straits in America and helped secure them the biggest hit in album doing so, as well as the video being a technical achievement for animation and computer graphics, which is all the more impressive that this was all used for a music video whose production was a small amount of time. I cannot stress how much of a miracle it was to get it out the door and it achieving so much success. Oh, to have been around in 1985 to see this on MTV. Really goes to show keeping your eyes glued on the channel raised your chances of being a witness to big moments in music and pop culture in general.
That's the way you do it.
A revolutionary music video to a channel that craved revolution, Dire Straits' Money for Nothing ended up showing that being a musician resulted in more than just getting money for nothing. It can make you a legend, and you can take that to the bank. Thanks for your time.